All right, what's up, fellas, ladies, gentlemen, children of all ages? Wake Up Mintzy, back, not live, in the Barstool Chicago office, pounding some Stella Blue coffee from Stan's Donuts. The only way to wake up, get your freaking mind right on this Wednesday morning, where we will be focusing on football and not mentioning, even though apparently something big happened in America last night. At least that's what I'm told. Chugging some Stella Blue coffee as always. Shout out Barstool Big Cat, and as always, Wake Up Mintzy. Sponsored by Dude Wipes. Let it rip with Dude Wipes. We're going to have some holiday flavors coming out soon. You'll never need dry, crappy toilet paper again. Let it rip with Dude Wipes. Amazon, Target, Walmart, and nationwide on the World Wide Web. It's a revolution. Once you use Dude Wipes once, it'll change your life. I'm back in the Chicago office. Had a pretty wild NOLA Savannah excursion this weekend. Got some fun clips from speaking at the Savannah Quarterback Club, which was actually founded in 1946. Cool thing. It's the second time I've ever done like a quarterback club speaking engagement. I did one in Biloxi. Got a lot of love from it, but I want to first just share some stories from this weekend, especially what happened me getting to Savannah. I kind of DAC's been covering it the last couple of days too. You know, I went to NOLA this weekend. I was there, whatever. Had fun time, nothing too crazy report. Tedeschi Trucks Band, really good show. At the Sanger Saturday night. And Sunday, I was out at Cooter Brown's, the sports bar, watching football, and then my buddy went to Henry's, and my friend I was staying with, that remains nameless on here, ends up leaving his phone at the bar at Henry's. And I was locked out of his place Sunday night and Monday morning to get my stuff. And this Savannah Quarterback Club gig was, man, it was like a blazer deal and like super nice. So I had to fly to Savannah and nothing but a Snoop Dogg, drop it like it's hot shirt, flip-flops, and an iPhone charger. And I just showed up and had to end up going to a discount clothing store and just like making magic happen. I ended up getting out of there for like $280 and looking pretty sharp, to be honest, for my speaking event. But it was just such an absurd on-brand thing, me showing up with no clothes for this like super big speaking engagement. But got a lot of love for the Savannah Quarterback Club thing. I just went up there and, tried to give a speech that was nothing like myself, share the clothing store story and origins of Barstool, and told some gambling stories and talked some Georgia Ole Miss football, which is exactly what we're going to do when we get Aaron Murray. He's about to jump on here right now, the SEC's all-time leading passer and media personality from the University of Georgia. Georgia, 2.5-point favorite at Ole Miss on Saturday at 2:30, projecting a full inch of rain in Oxford Saturday, which I don't necessarily love. But you know what? Can't get down about the rain because Barstool Sports is taking over Oxford this weekend. Friday, Pop Punk, PFT's band with Robbie Fox and Frankie Borelli and the whole crew. Going to be playing the Library Sports Bar Friday night, and then the College Football Show with Brandon Walker, Casey, Big Ev, Dave Portnoy, and Big Cat will be outside Swayze Field, outside the left field fence at 12:30 in front of the 2:30 game. Can't wait to show Dave and Big Cat, and especially Brandon Walker, going back to Oxford for the first time. I can't imagine the last time Brandon went. Can't wait to see, too, what kind of reception he's going to get after all the horrible crap he said about Ole Miss over all the years. But join us. The library is going to be popping Friday night for Pop Punk. They always kill it. And then the College Football Show Saturday. And then I can't wait for the game. Georgia, a 2.5-point favorite on DraftKings. Kind of a rat line, which kind of makes me feel a little good about the Rebs anytime I see that road favorite minus 2.5. Over-under 55, which I understand why it's a little higher because of what happened with Ole Miss beating Arkansas 63-31 last week. But there's a lot of stuff to get into with this game. Man, just so much fun, though. What a huge college football weekend. Bama at LSU Saturday night on the doubleheader. And, man, just cannot freaking wait to get down to Ole Miss and see what all that's like. I'm trying to make it by the basketball game Friday night at 6 as well. Support Chris Beard. The Rebs started up Monday. Going to be hitting the square. I mean, what a time to be alive, dude. Dave Portnoy and Big Cat in Oxford, Mississippi. Man, well, we're going to be joined by Aaron Murray any second. I'm getting text that he's popping up. There he is. We're Wake Up with Aaron Murray. It's a, kind of a sunshiny day in America. We're excited to be up. Yeah, happy to be alive here on this morning. And now that the selection's over, we can focus on the real task at hand, and that's this Georgia Ole Miss football game with so much at stake for both teams, especially Ole Miss, who has literally, has no margin for error with the playoff. Georgia heading up. Georgia, 2.5-point favorite, over under 55. Aaron, an inch of rain projected for Oxford, Mississippi Saturday. A full inch. Going to be a rainy one, which I actually think might favor Georgia a little bit. But we'll get into a lot of it. First of all, how you been? I've been enjoying following you calling games around the country.
Yeah, man, it's been great. I actually had an opportunity to call your boys early on the season down there in Oxford. Always love going down there. Been trying to tell all my friends that are going there this weekend to get there early. I said get a reservation, but I'm pretty sure everything's probably booked for Friday night. But just get on the square. It's going to be a scene. Hopefully it doesn't rain Friday and Saturday. But, yeah, man, that's a bummer that's going to rain.
I'm bummed too.
Yeah,
So
Ole Miss.
the Barstool College Football Show's never been to Oxford. So Dave Portnoy and Big Cat's first Oxford trip. We're doing the show at 12:30 in front of the 2:30 game. Probably going to be wearing rain jackets for it. But I'm just curious, getting into a lot of it, because I love talking football and breaking it down with your quarterback background, about how that affects the game. Because when you look at, like, taking the rain out, Georgia, it opened at 3, now it's like 2.5. You can't overreact to Ole Miss Arkansas last week, because that's like the whole thing. That's like a fallacy. You're never as good or as bad as last week. But a lot of talk on, Georgia, Florida last week. I mean, if DJ Lagway didn't pop his hamstring, that could have been a game into the fourth quarter. Carson Beck's having an up-and-down season. I mean, he had 3 picks last week, but he did, when the game was on the line, he went 11 for 15 in the fourth quarter and settled down. Didn't end up settling down. Georgia with a 34-20 win. Now going to Ole Miss, how you feeling on the dog side of this thing?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I want to go in a world where there is no rain. So let's just think perfect weather. It's a gorgeous day. It's 65 degrees and sunny in Oxford. And how do these two teams actually match up against each other? Like that's how I want to look at it first before we start considering what it may do to whether it's Jackson Dart or Carson Beck. I like Ole Miss a lot. I've had Arkansas twice this season. I had them a couple weeks ago versus Mississippi State actually. And that's a good Arkansas team. Talen's playing well this year. They got, Armstrong on the outside. They got 2 good running backs. The freshman running back's an absolute beast. The front seven's pretty darn good. But the secondary has not been it's been their weak part. That is their weakness. It was not a good matchup for Arkansas. Not saying anything against Ole Miss in that passing attack, but that was a game where I looked at heading into the game. I told my boy T-Bob on the show, our boy T-Bob, Ole Miss is going to dominate through the air. Regardless of Trey Harris is playing or not, this secondary is going to struggle against Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart. And obviously that played out in a big way, scoring over 60 points. But that is still the Ole Miss offense that I expect to show up week in and week out. Maybe not 60 points, but they're a 35 to 45 points per game type offense. With the weapons they have on the outside, you get Trey back hopefully. You got depth at the tight end position. I love their defense. It just comes down to offensive line play, Mintzy. Like that's it. And I think the thing that gives Georgia fans confidence is they went into Austin against that offense and that quarterback and those receivers against Sark and dominated the lines of scrimmage, and that's what won the football game. Can Ole Miss handle the lines of scrimmage? Can they be better defensively? Yes. Can they do it on offense? That's going to be the question mark. But the big difference is too, though, Quinn Ewers is a statue. He ain't gonna move. You can put your head down and you can get after Quinn. Jackson's different because of his mobility. You can't just rear back and say you're gonna get after him play after play after play. So, little nervous for Ole Miss offensive line. Straight up, like that's their Achilles heel. And I think this is still a game where if you ain't physical, you ain't gonna win.
Well, what's so interesting to me is going back a year ago, and I actually hung out with you on the Friday night in Athens when Ole Miss went into Georgia with only 1 loss. And Georgia just beat the dog crap out of them. 52-17, manhandled them at the line of scrimmage. And there was a meeting the next day between Lane Kiffin and the head of the Ole Miss Grove Collective, Walker Jones. And there was a meeting like, hey, if we're going to compete for playoffs and national championships, we got to spend the money and we got to get tougher at the line of scrimmage. And then the Grove Collective passed around the hat and went out and they spent the freaking money. And, Walter Nolan, obviously a huge part of it. Up front on defense, Ole Miss has got one of the best front sevens in America. I mean, you've got 4 guys that are probably going to get Senior Bowl invites with Jared Ivey, Pegues, Walter Nolan, and Princely up front. And so at the line of scrimmage, they got tougher on the D-line. On the offensive line, they spent money and brought in 4 guys who had a lot of experience, but none of them were necessarily elite. Brought in the 2 guards from Washington, Diego Pounds from North Carolina, and the Southern Miss guard center. And it was like exciting on paper going in the year because they had a lot of experience. And so when you're like, hey, you got like 220 starts or something on the O-line. But none of them have really proved elite. They've had some injuries. They hadn't really gelled. And that's what concerns me about this game. Henry Parrish is also out, the Ole Miss running back. And you're looking at a spot where Jackson Dart's going to have to do a lot. And I'm hoping Trey Harris is back. But even with that, I don't know how much you can count on the Ole Miss running game here. And that puts a lot of pressure on Dart against Georgia.
Well, I think that's the same thing with Georgia, though, too, Mincy, is Georgia this year. I do a show with a bunch of lettermen at Georgia. It's like me, No Sean Reno, Tavares King, Ben Jones, who, Ben obviously was a 4-year starter at Georgia, playing the NFL for 11, 12 years with Houston and Tennessee as a center. And I think it's somewhat of an epidemic around college football. These offensive lines, a lot of them, regardless of how big they are, they're more built to pass block. That's just their identity. That's what they're doing. Especially with a lot of these RPOs nowadays. So Georgia is a better run blocking team than a pass blocking team. Or excuse me, a pass blocking team than a run blocking team. Flip it over. Can they run the ball against Ole Miss? I mean, this is going to be, that's a question too. Like, which offensive line can actually, if it is raining, so let's bring the rain into this one, which offensive line can put their head down and run the football and get the ball to the backs and give them some space, create some holes. And, I don't know if I can sit back and say I trust Georgia right now. I definitely don't think I can sit back and say I trust Ole Miss right now, which comes to a game, and I know this is cliche to say, turnovers and weather, which as of right now favors Ole Miss because Georgia has been giving the ball a ton, home field advantage, and starting field position. So I think we sit back and say like, oh my God, if it rains, that sucks for Ole Miss, but once again, like I don't know what advantages Georgia have because they haven't been able to run the ball consistently either, and they are turning the ball over at a higher clip than Ole Miss.
Yeah, my instincts going off on it think it might be a lower scoring physical game here. It's like a 2017, 23-20 kind of deal. When I look at it, especially already kind of thought that. When you look at Ole Miss's defensive line's line on like 2 yards a carry this year, I mean, the D-line's been elite. And then the Georgia side of it, we saw what Georgia did to Texas and how tough they are up front, and Ole Miss's offensive line struggled. I mean, I kind of feel like
who gets a defensive touchdown? I mean, who gets a defensive touchdown? I mean, and then go back to the Texas game. Georgia's offense I think had one really good possession where they drove the length of the field. And it took somewhat of a quote-unquote trick play, tight end sneak to get 40 of those yards. Other than that, Georgia was able to start in Texas's field position, short fields, and score. So that's a really good defense in Texas. I think Ole Miss is just as good defensively. And you bring in the weather. I think it's going to be tough for both these offenses to drive. So who can get a turnover? Who can get a short field? What special teams can make a couple field goals, be consistent there? This is not going to be a sexy game. Let's just be honest. Like this is not going to be a high-scoring battle where Ole Miss is going to score 60 points again. I'm with you. I think this game is going to be in the teens, maybe low 20s. Kind of an old school rock'em sock'em football game. And listen, that's what Ole Miss, going back to what you said, that's what they wanted to do this offseason when they brought in these guys, when they raised the money. Lane said, we can't compete with Alabama and Georgia line of scrimmage. This is a big opportunity for them to go out there and do that. They did it versus Kentucky. Kentucky ate the clock up. Was it 40-20, whatever it was? Can Ole Miss finally be physical? Because, we talked about their butts on the line to make the playoffs right now.
No, this is it for Ole Miss. And honestly, the path is right there. I mean, it's literally all about this Georgia game because Ole Miss has a swamp trip behind it in a couple weeks, but they caught a huge break with the DJ injury. Florida's got a third-string quarterback, and so all they got behind Georgia is Florida with the third stringer and the Egg Bowl at home in Oxford. I mean, literally a win here. You're looking really good. A couple Georgia questions to ask. First of all, Etienne got hurt last week. How bad's that?
Still TBD on that one. Don't know if he's going to be full go, how healthy he's going to be. But I will tell you this. I brought up Noshawn earlier in the chat. Nate Frazier reminds me a lot of Noshawn Moreno running the football. Like that dude is an absolute beast. He's physical. He can get after it. But Trevor's a game changer. Trevor has that burst. Trevor's got that sudden quickness in the hole where if it pops, it's gone. So it will be interesting to see if Trevor can't go, especially if it's rainy and the ground's not as stable for him to be able to run on, what kind of running back he looks like if he does play in the game. So, do you get Dylan Bell involved in the run game some more? Do you do some more jet sweeps with him? Do you get Aaron Smith involved in the run game somehow? I think the difference between Ole Miss and Georgia is Carson can beat you a couple times in the pocket with his legs, or at least Jackson Dart on some zone reads can get you some yards. Like you can design some quarterback runs, especially in the red zone, third down situations with Jackson Dart to compensate for not being fully healthy at the running back spot for Ole Miss. So, don't know what the exact status of ETN is, but it would be a huge loss if he's not able to go.
I want to get into the Carson Beck stuff because, like I said, you're a quarterback, and I know you do the deep quarterback drives. What's going on here with him this year? And I know he's not that mobile, and obviously, look, you lost Ladd McConkey and Bowers. Those two guys, I know when you're Georgia and you're Bama, you're like, oh, next 5-star up. Those guys are irreplaceable, and you can see what they're doing on Sundays already. Mm-hmm. Both have had massive impacts on the Chargers and Raiders already, and they both have unique skill sets. They're not like just generic receivers. And it seems like maybe has it been part of just struggling to replace those guys, or I feel like he's not seeing the field well, turn the ball over. I'm trying to figure out because you're talking about a guy that everybody thought was a surefire first rounder going into the year, and his stock has gone way down.
Oh yeah, he was my number one quarterback heading into the season. I think he was a lot of people's number one quarterback heading into the season for draft expectations. I just think there's a lack of trust right now, and it's hard to blame him. This is a Georgia offense that has rotated guys up front of offensive line due to injury. Has had multiple drops from receivers. You go back to like Oscar or Aaron Smith, and just I think all around him there's been inconsistency, and right now those guys are actually playing better. Like the offensive line is healthy and those guys look good. You got Tate Ratledge back at the guard position. I think the receivers are playing better. Aaron's playing better. Dom Lovett's playing better. Lawson Lucky's playing well, but he hasn't built that trust yet to say, hey, perfect example. Last week, it's 3rd and 10. You have a dig route, which is a 10-yard over the middle, and then a little sit down. You're going to read the linebacker. If he drops in depth, you check it down. If he comes up, then you throw the dig route behind him. It's a simple read. I mean, I did it. We called it Rex Gun 62 Verizon. It was a great cover 2 play. And the linebacker last week dropped, and Lawson's sitting there 5 yards in depth, and you have to trust that I can check that ball down and Lawson's going to do his job to get the first down. He's going to make someone miss. Instead, Carson thinks, oh no, I got to make the play. I have to make the perfect throw because if I don't, we're going to be 3 and out. And he almost throws his 4th pick of the game. He has to start trusting that the guys around him are going to make plays. The offense line is going to be able to pick up the protection. The receivers are going to make the one-on-one plays. And until he does that, he'll continue to make mistakes. And hopefully he's seeing enough film over the past 2 weeks to say, oh my God, those guys are doing their job. Let me do mine. And this offense is going to be pretty damn good. And that's it. I mean, that is truly it for him right now, which is, I say it's an easy fix, but we'll see how ready it is come this weekend and going forward.
A lot of Georgia people heading to Oxford for Saturday.
Yes, a lot of people. A lot of people spent a lot of money this year between Tuscaloosa, Austin, and Oxford. So I would say this is probably trip number 2 if I had to pick of the 3. Austin was a great weekend, going there to Texas for those who went. Obviously it's the Georgia-Alabama rivalry. A lot of people love to go to Tuscaloosa. And you can
closer
to
if
you want to.
It's closer, yeah.
But, I mean, I love Oxford. I mean, that is one of my favorite places to call a game. And I know a lot of people that have not been to Oxford because of, obviously, the newness of what the SEC is now. I mean, when's the last time Georgia's been to Oxford?
Man, I think – so it was actually Kirby Smart's first year. It was 2015. Okay. And he started. Ole Miss beat them it was like 53-10 or something. I mean, it was Chad Kelly still playing, or it was 2016 actually, I think. But it was it was Kirby. Yeah, it was 2016 because it was Kirby Smart's first year, and he had to flip the roster. And second year he made the national championship game, so it didn't seem like it took very long.
So yes, a lot of people will be going for the enjoyment of the scenery.
Yeah, I always feel like Oxford and Athens are kind of first cousins. Like Athens is definitely bigger, but there's a lot of similarities with the vibes around the college town and like music scene and just I don't know. I've always just felt
like a country club. Oxford feels more country clubby to me.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've always enjoyed going to Athens.
Upscale.
A little more upscale.
A little bit more upscale.
Yeah. A lot smaller too, though. Athens is so.
Yes.
Athens is
smaller, more upscale. Athens a little bit grungy in spots. We a little rocky with the music.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, look, I love that Athens music scene. That ain't no surprise.
No.
But yeah, so you kind of feel like slug. It sounds like your instincts are saying slugfest and hope Georgia gets out of there with a 2017 win. Is kind of what you're.
Yeah, especially now that you bring up the rain. I do think if it was a pretty day, I'd be a little bit more nervous. I do think that if it is raining, I think Georgia overall more physical lines of scrimmage. Especially their defense going against Ole Miss's offense, because you could say like Georgia's offense line versus Ole Miss's defense line. That's a wash. I think two of the best at their groups. Georgia's defensive line versus Ole Miss's offense line, that's where the big advantage is right there. So I think in a rainy run the football game, I think advantage Georgia. I do think if it was nice outside, I do question a little bit Georgia's secondary. Can they hold up against Ole Miss in that passing attack? And unfortunately, we may not be able to see that. If you're an Ole Miss fan.
Okay, as a quarterback, rain or wind bother you more?
Rain bothered me more.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like because I could spin it, I could spin it pretty well. So the wind was never like a major issue. Obviously, it hurts you depending if you're going into it or not. But you could always say like, okay, I'm going into the wind. I got to throw it a little bit earlier. Oh, I got the wind with me. I got to take a little bit off. So you can kind of manipulate it. Where if it's raining, I don't got the biggest hands in the world, so I think that's part of the issue. So it's just it is a bitch to grip the football. But I knew guys like Met. I remember when I would watch Met at LSU a little bit, and even when he was in Athens, somehow when it rained, he threw it better, which was crazy. Like I don't know what it was, Met. He had some big hands, and I don't know if like the stickiness on the football maybe helped him a little bit too when it got wet, and he would spin the hell of it. So some guys are fine with the rain. I think if I had bigger hands, maybe I'd feel more comfortable. But since I could throw a pretty tight spiral, I always felt like I could judge the wind a little bit better.
Yeah, hey, you were in KC in the NFL, and there's wind like crazy out there. So you definitely had to deal with it out there at some point. Well, also, I want to look around the rest of the SEC, talk to playoff picture. The playoff rankings came out last night. And, when you really look at the SEC right now, it feels like if you get to 10-2, man, you're going to get in with the way it's like kind of got 2007 vibes where everybody's just beating each other. So, like, Georgia – not necessarily a must-win here. I mean, they need it. They're trying to make the SEC championship in Atlanta and get a top 4 seed. But a loss in this game would mean they'd have to win out, and they have Tennessee coming in really soon into Athens. Looking around, the Bama-LSU game, we got an old-school WWE loser leaves town matchup here. They both got 2 losses. Losers toast.
Yes.
Bama's a favorite. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know Bama's a favorite. I think LSU wins this football game.
I do too. I think it's a Bama line is like based on the past. Why is Bama laying 3 in Baton Rouge? They couldn't win in Nashville or Knoxville. I feel like it should be pick'em.
And listen, it's all about a game of matchups. So what's your strength against their weakness? Alabama's secondary is still not very good. Let's just be honest. You go to the Georgia game and Carson threw for 400 yards. If you truly watch the All-22 where you get to see the secondary against Tennessee, Nico should have thrown for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, he's missing wide open guys down the field. So this is a young secondary that still has a lot of growing up to do, and I don't know if that was done in the bye week. They got Missouri and a backup quarterback who should not be playing D1 football. So, like, very fortunate in that last game. And maybe that helped them with the confidence going forward. But, LSU, that offense line, which doesn't give up sacks, those receivers on the outside, if you can get some resemblance of a run game, which at times they've been able to, I think LSU is going to be able to score on them. I think they're going to be able to score. And I do think that the LSU defense was surprised 2 weeks ago versus A&M. They will be prepared for Jalen. You have 2 weeks to prepare for a running quarterback. They were not prepared for Marcel Reed. They prepared all week for Wegman, who's more of a pocket quarterback, can run it at times, but that's on his game. Marcel comes in there, and they got shocked. So that's a little bit unfair to them. I'm not going to say it's bad coaching because you only get so much time in the week to prepare for a football team. I'm not going to prepare for Marcel Reed when he's not playing if Connor Wegman's healthy. So 2 weeks to prepare for Jalen. I think the LSU defense will give up yards, no doubt about it. Jalen, if he's healthy, he's a freak. But I just think overall LSU's offense and Alabama's weakness right now in the secondary, I think they're going to be able to score too much points at home in Baton Rouge. Crazy environment. We've seen environments make a big difference this year in football. So I think LSU does win this football game.
Yeah, I kind of lean the same way. I hadn't checked the weather in Baton Rouge because there's like a tropical storm hitting Sunday. So I'm wondering if some of that same thing with Oxford, I'm wondering if this is going to affect the Southeast because I think a rainy thing might help Bama to slow down the passing game a little bit. But hey, it never rains in Tiger Stadium, right? Isn't that the old chant?
Never rain. You know what's I played 4 years as a starting quarterback in Athens and never had a rainy game. 4 years.
Really? Never
4 years,
won.
yeah.
Never won
Never
rainy game.
once.
The other SEC game.
It is raining Saturday in Baton Rouge. 55% chance of rain. Saturday night, 72% chance of rain.
Well, that's probably good for Bama trying to run it, I would
Yes.
think. But
Yep.
look, I mean, I still think that atmosphere is going to be turned up to the max down there in Baton Rouge. And then some other fun ones to talk about because the best story in the SEC this year has been Vandy with Diego Pavia. And, they're an underdog every week and just keep winning. The win outright, +7 at Auburn, +12 at Kentucky, +23 against Bama. That's a fascinating matchup with South Carolina at home in Nashville this week. South Carolina, best win of the year. They're usually good for one of those big upsets in Columbia every year because that atmosphere, people don't talk about it, but that night game at Columbia, I mean, that's turned up at like a very top level. I thought A&M was ripe for the picking last week. And I was on South Carolina. I wasn't surprised by that. However, this is a totally different deal. You're going on the road to Nashville. You're feeling yourself. South Carolina's got a young team, hyped up. I don't know. I feel like this is is this like a spot for a letdown effort or is it like a momentum thing off last week? I feel like it can go two ways.
I'll actually be on the call for this game. So,
good.
I'll be on coaches' calls with South Carolina in about an hour and a half from now. So I love both teams. I actually had South Carolina week 1 versus Old Dominion, and I remember doing some shows saying like, oh my God, I think South Carolina is the worst team in the SEC. I mean, that's how bad they looked in week 1, especially on offense. And I'll say this now, I think South Carolina is a top 15 team in college football. And unfortunate for them, the officiating versus LSU cost them that one.
And Sellers quarterback got hurt
and
too.
And Sellers got hurt, obviously, too. But, I mean, hell, they get that pick 6, the game's over. So, they are truly either that or like Sellers not fumbling the ball versus Alabama. They're 2 plays away from being a 2-loss team, if not a 1-loss team, and they're ranked inside the top 12. That's how good I think this football team is. The defense is legit. The front seven's amazing. Rocket Sanders, when healthy, we saw it a week ago, is an absolute beast. Lenore Sellers taking care of the football. He's maturing as a passer. I really like South Carolina. I really do like them. But you said it. A&M 2 weeks ago, wins a massive game at home. They go on the road, and they have I don't even say it's a letdown because I thought South Carolina once again. I think South Carolina's the better football team and at home. But I like Vandy too. I like the way they play defense, and their offense does enough unique stuff that will make that South Carolina defense slow down. And that's what like these triple offenses do. And that's why they give them such a headache. You can't just, the defensive ends for South Carolina just can't rear back and go because there's so much misdirection. There's so much confusion. There's so much shifting and motion. So can Vanderbilt do enough of that to slow down the front seven of South Carolina? That's going to be their key. But I think this is one of the best games of the weekend. I think both teams should be ranked inside the top 25 when it comes to the playoffs. I was very disappointed that they weren't. I think they're both playing at a high level. I think both quarterbacks are playing at a high level. And I think both of them are 2 of the best stories in the SEC this season.
Yeah, the Vandy thing is fascinating to me because, obviously with their past, but Diego Pavia, man, he's just that guy.
Yeah.
And there's one thing they've done strategy-wise that I've mentioned it a few times this year, and I'm curious to see what you say on this. I think that people don't talk enough in college football. The clock not stopping on first down helps these underdogs shorten these games.
Oh, yeah.
And there's 2 or 3 less possessions each. You're not seeing these 90-play deals we were seeing with the 4.5-hour games. And a team like Vandy that huddles and runs this veer, and then they just pick up every 3rd and 4. I mean, it's just a nightmare to get off the field on 3rd down. And they have these 6, 7, 8-minute drives, and they've just kind of found a formula to pull upsets as an underdog. By doing
that. They're leading the SEC in time of possession right now per game. They're just under 33 minutes of time of possession per game right now. So on average, they're possessing the ball 6 more minutes than their opponent. South Carolina right now is number 5. So they're possessing like 31 and a half minutes per game. So both these teams want to run the football. Both these teams want to keep it out of the hands of the opponent. And obviously Kentucky's done that for a while, and that's how Kentucky was able to take advantage, like I talked about earlier with you guys early on the season. When you play powerful offenses or teams that are better than you, that's what you do. I mean, hell, I remember this was complete BS, but I remember an AAU basketball tournament when I was a kid, and we faced a team, and there was no shot clock rule. The team would just hold the ball. That's all they did. The game ended up being like 6-4, the basketball game. They literally just held it and just passed it around. And they would waste like 3-4 minutes. I mean, it was such pussy stuff, but like it was unbelievable. But that's the only way they could win. It was crazy. So yeah, for Vanderbilt and teams like that, run the football, eat the clock up, huddle, use it to your advantage. And it's part of the reason why they've been able to have success.
Does Vandy have a good enough run defense to slow down South Carolina? That's my one concern.
Yes, they do. I think as a defense, and I think that goes back to the time of possession as well. Like their defense is off the field. Their defense is rested. They know they can go balls to the wall when they're out there. But into South Carolina's offensive line, they've improved. And I know everyone's hyped. They're like, oh my God, they didn't give up a sack last week to A&M. But like part of that was Sellers just throwing dudes off. So they're better than they were a year ago. There's no doubt about that South Carolina offensive line. But once again, like how focused are they going into Vanderbilt? Because, it's still a good enough defensive line that's, I think, right now ranked in the middle of the pack when it comes to SEC defenses and yards given up per game on the ground, right around 110, that, they could definitely stifle them a little bit.
Well, I can't wait to see that matchup. Fascinating when you on the call. Hey, and you get a Nashville trip out of it. I don't know how much free time you got, but go check out that Barstool bar in Nashville. It's insane.
Hopefully right off Broadway. Raining. Now you got me worried it's going to be raining all over the SEC this weekend now.
Yeah, I know. I am a little worried about it. That's definitely a November thing. I want to ask about some quarterbacks around college football because you're always on top of that analysis. I'm just a massive Cam Ward roadie. I always believe, like I said, I'm no scout. I mean, I don't claim I know any technical stuff or anything like that. But what I've noticed when it comes to the NFL, that the only evaluation thing I have that's worked through the years is when someone goes to a program that's like 5-6 wins and then they win 9 or 10. Like when you have a quarterback that just comes in and raises the level of everybody. And like Eli, Ole Miss, Andrew Luck, Stanford, Matt Ryan, BC. The list goes on of guys that are going to, I know Miami has a great history. That roster is like not even top 30 good. I mean, if you watch them on defense, they're in slow motion. It's crazy how slow they are. And Cam Ward, they have to score 45 or 50 every week to win. Yep. And I kind of think I don't know. I don't know if that's like a weird way of looking at the quarterback evaluation stuff, but to me,
I actually kind of like that because that is part of your job. Like, can I elevate the play around me? I mean, hell, Peyton Manning, his last couple of years in the NFL, I remember – just being around him at times and playing against him when we play the Denver Broncos. He actually got benched at one point when we were playing them in Denver, but he couldn't throw the football. But guess what? He came back and still led them to a Super Bowl because he made everyone else around him better. He made everyone else around him believe that they could win. I do think that Cam exudes that confidence to almost like was it Bryce a couple years ago at Alabama? That Alabama roster struggled at times around him. But people believe that, hey, he's Superman. He's going to win it for us. So I do worry a little bit that Miami does rely on him a little bit to be Superman. But he's special. And he's got the size, too. That's the thing I didn't really realize. You don't know how big he is until you see him in person. But, I mean, he's 6'2", 223. So he checks off the size. He checks off the escapability. The arm strength is elite. At times, the recklessness is a little bit worrisome for the next level. I mean, I've seen twice this year now where he's running out of bounds and throws the ball across the field to the opposite hash for interceptions. Did it a week ago, did it versus Cal. It's like that's kind of the give and take when you allow him to be the playmaker that he is. But some of that stuff I think needs to get cleaned up a little bit. But I love him. I love Shedeur. The way he's playing this year has been terrific as well. I think those two have really separated themselves from the pack, from the Carson, the Quinn Ewers, from Jalen, those two have said, hey, we're top 10 picks. And then I think everyone else is just, as of right now, trying to fight to stay in the first round.
That's what I'm hearing, too. The quarterback evaluation stuff I've heard is that this is not a good draft for it. And so we'll see how it ends up breaking down. But I do like Cam. What do you think of Shedeur?
I think Shedeur is accurate. I think Shedeur is a competitor. I think Shedeur has that nice balance and maybe overdone at times. of being cocky and confident, and you have to straddle that. Like, you have to walk on the field if you're going to be a quarterback and play at a high level, whether it's college or NFL. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe that you're the baddest mother out there. And I think Shedeur has that belief. He has the talent to back it up. And I think he can walk into an NFL locker room next year with that swagger, with that confidence, and believe that he should be a starting quarterback. And that's half the battle. You have to believe that you could be a quarterback with a bunch of grown men around you that are getting paid a lot of money. And I don't think he's scared of that. I don't think he's scared of the locker room. I don't think he's scared of being a rookie starting quarterback. I think he can walk into that environment and be pretty darn good early on. So he checks off a lot of boxes. He's accurate. He plays well in big games, takes care of the football for the majority of it, has a good arm strength. So like I said, I think both those guys will be fighting for that number one spot. It just depends on what kind of type of quarterback you want at the next level.
I feel like I can see. What about the Shedeur Sanders wearing the Las Vegas Raiders jersey? I just feel like you can just like see it already.
What about Deion and Shedeur going to New Orleans together?
Oh, that would be something too. Look, I'm all for. Like I said, I'm starting the Saints. I've been starting the Saints Cam Ward bandwagon. I'm all about it. When you look at the Saints fired Dennis Allen, they just traded Marshawn Lattimore yesterday to the Commanders. It's like they've been rolling the credit card over on the salary cap thing for like 20 years, and now the tab's due, and it's hit this year at 2-7. And so,
but if I tell you you can get Deion and Shedeur, would you take that over Cam?
No, I mean, I know it'd be fun, but I don't know. I just love Cam. Like I said, maybe I'm over evaluating him, but I just really, like I said, when you look at Miami, I mean, they had a stretch where they went 3-0 and allowed 116 points in 3 games. I mean,
yeah.
Like, I don't know how you could really ask much more. Well, looking at the playoff thing, I know you're really focused on the SEC, but I got to ask you about Indiana because this is the damnedest story I've ever seen. I've had a lot of fun with them this year because I took their over win total and I've been taking them every week. And I thought they could be like 8-4 or 9-3 because Cignetti bringing the 14 starters from James Madison that lost 1 game. And I've always been a fan of that Curtis Rohart from Ohio, even though he's had some injuries. But I didn't think no one thought it'd be like this. They're 9-0, and I know they got Michigan at home this week, which is going to be no problem. But do you think, like, evaluating Indiana Ohio State's next week, how do you evaluate this game? Like, what the hell is going to happen? It's like literally one of the most fascinating games in college football.
Well, I want to wait to judgment till after they play Michigan this week because I know Michigan has not been terrific by any standards, but I mean, listen, they found some sort of passing game the past couple weeks. And they're still a really good defense. So how does Indiana match up on the lines of scrimmage against Michigan? If they can hold their own on both sides of the line of scrimmage, like offensive line, defensive line, then you say like, okay, maybe the game could get interesting because right now they are playing elite on defense. Right now they're playing elite on offense. I think they're still the number 1 offense in the country when it comes to points per game at the moment. And I know it's against, lesser opponents, but still it's been very efficient. I go back to, I watched that Nebraska game really closely, and just seeing a Nebraska team that did pride itself on being physical at the line of scrimmage. They whipped them the entire football game. So I love what they've been able to put. Cignetti's been able to put together on both sides of the line of scrimmage. But like I said, if they can hold their own this weekend, I think they do got talent on the outside. Quarterbacks playing at a high level. I think Ohio State obviously wins the football game. But I think they can make it a 4-quarter battle to where we sit back and say, like, oh, my God, like Indiana could win first round of the playoffs, second round of the playoffs, and maybe be a top 8 and contend for the Final Four. Like, I do believe they're
what kind of world is this? What kind of world?
But they are. They're a complete football team, man. Like, they play well on both sides.
No, they do. No, I mean, they're one of the most fun teams I've ever watched. I mean, when you look at it, and like I thought they could be, 8 or 9 wins going in. I didn't realize they have speed. Like you wouldn't think Indiana's going to have guys at the skill positions, but they do. They run the ball well. They're efficient. They play defense. They're well. It's unbelievable. Cignetti,
the quarterback. I'm just happy the quarterback. The injury is not. I was a little bit worried it would linger and it'd be something that would last a little bit. So the fact that he came back last week, was able to play at a high level. You give him another game against Michigan at a high level, he'll be feeling pretty good confidence-wise heading into the game.
When you look around college football, what's so fascinating about this year is no one knows who the best team is. I guess Oregon may be playing the best right now, but they beat Ohio State by 1. But you look at Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, all these SEC teams. I mean, it feels like literally anything can happen in the playoffs. Do you have any particular, who? I mean, obviously you're partial to Georgia, but who? Do you have any thoughts on who the best team is right now?
I struggle with this a little bit with Ohio State and Oregon. I think Ohio State's an offensive pass interference away from having an opportunity to kick a field goal to win the football game. I really like Ohio State. I really like Oregon. So I would say those two right now deserve to be 1-2, and obviously Oregon beat them, so they're the number one team in the country. But that's going to be an incredible rematch in the Big Ten championship, where I do think Ohio State gets him. Ohio State ends up winning the Big Ten. Ohio State ends up being ranked number one heading into the playoffs. But I do love Oregon's speed. Dylan's playing at a high level. Even with the injury to their top receiver, they're playing very fast on the outside. Defense is playing at a high level. I still say don't sleep on Texas. That's my one team that I feel like a lot of people, once they lost to Georgia, obviously they didn't play great against Vanderbilt, but that's a really good defense. I still think Quinn's a talented quarterback. They got a lot of talent around him. I think the offense line's been a little bit disappointing this year from expectations, but I do believe overall as a football team, Texas is just kind of laying there like no one's really talking about us, but I really, really like the Longhorns, and they got Florida this weekend. They'll probably dominate them. They'll take advantage of Arkansas. They'll beat Kentucky, and I do believe they're a better team than A&M, but that's going to be a big game down the stretch.
Yeah, at A&M,
they take care of that. Yeah, then they'll, just like Ohio State, probably get a rematch against Georgia in Atlanta.
Yeah, no, that Texas thing, you're right. People are writing them off a little bit, and you look at their schedule, taking on Florida, no Lagway, at Arkansas, Kentucky at home, very, very favorable to win 3 in a row. And realistically, if they're 10-1 at that point, they pretty much have a playoff berth going to the A&M game, win or lose. Yes. That's going to be, talk about a ticket. Freaking first time they played in 13 years and could be playing for a playoff bid. That's going to be Thanksgiving night. That's going to be one of the craziest damn atmospheres.
Well, the tickets are like $600, I think, plus bucks just to get in the stadium right now.
Yeah, I believe it, man. That's going to be one of the craziest atmospheres, literally in the sport. Before I let you go, a couple other things that I feel like the spots. Miami's the favorite in the ACC. SMU now number 2. What the hell happened with Clemson last week? Because everybody convinced themselves that they had it together, and they played so well. Now I did too. I'm not saying I didn't. Man, that was an embarrassing effort at home against Louisville. They got waxed on their home.
Yeah, well, Klubnik's played better this year, so I think that was what was giving me confidence. Like, okay, you got the defense. Klubnik's playing with more confidence. Year 2 in the system. And I don't think he played bad last week by any means. Like, this wasn't Klubnik, regressed, and that's the reason. They just got whooped on both lines of scrimmage. Like, Louisville created explosive plays in the run game in the first half. Clemson could not get the run game going. Their best runner was Cade in the first half. He was a little bit hesitant at times to throw the football. Some guys that were open, he just wasn't taking it. But the defense was embarrassing. Like I said, the run game really didn't get going into the second half when the game was somewhat out of reach already. So Louisville just beat them straight up. Like, Louisville went into Clemson coming off a bye week, and beat their ass at the line of scrimmage on both sides. And that is unacceptable if you're a Clemson fan. That is unacceptable. That is embarrassing. That should never happen in your stadium with the talent that's on that roster. So it was a losing to Georgia, understandable. Losing to Louisville at home in that fashion is, like I said, it's unacceptable. And that is truly a look yourself in the mirror kind of moment for the Tigers.
Yeah, it is. And now all of a sudden, Miami the favorite in the ACC. The SMU thing is fascinating. Are you taking them seriously at this point? I mean, right now, they're undefeated. They've played a week. They had a really weak ACC schedule. The at Louisville win was the key for them. All the rest of their games they're favored. I mean, they're looking to go undefeated. And, Pitt's been a great surprise story. But, I mean, SMU demolished them last week. Feels like that, they spent a crap ton of money on that roster. And, I mean, they've got a shot at a playoff berth.
Well, they do. I still don't know. One, they had the easiest Power 5 schedule heading into the year. That was a known fact. And they did play BYU competitive too. I think that helps them as well. But I think a 2-loss SMU. We talk about the SEC. If you lose 2, you're probably in still. I don't think a 2-loss SMU gets in. So they're gonna have to win out, which I think they will. I think they'll beat BC. They'll beat Virginia. They'll beat Cal. Especially 2 of those games being at home. Can they beat Miami? If they beat Miami, Miami's going to be in still. I think you get 2 ACC teams in. But there's no way that if SMU loses one more, they're in, unless it's like, they lose one of the next three, they still get into the playoffs, or the ACC championship game, and then they beat Miami. So they're gonna have to win the next four to get in. But I like it, man. Like, listen, the schedule's the schedule. It is what it is. But SMU's got money that has been thrown around a ton, and guess what kids care about? They care about getting paid. And if you know that, hey, this program went 10-2, went to the ACC championship game, it's in Dallas, it's at a great university, and they got a bunch of money, you use that, you build on it, and hopefully you don't become like TCU and disappear after one successful year.
No, it certainly seems like actually they're building something there. And the final thing I got is on the Big 12. BYU right now the favorite. Iowa State had that very surprising loss to Texas Tech last week. Colorado has a shot. Who do you think is going to end up coming out and getting that playoff spot out of there?
I hope it's Colorado.
I do too, for the clicks. Yeah.
Oh my God! Just for you and I being in this world of media, there would be nothing better than Deion Sanders in the playoffs. Would be absolutely electric. So, that would be awesome. So I think for those in the media world, hate them, love them, whatever you want to say, we all know that Colorado is good for college football, and Deion's good for college football, and them in the playoffs is really good for college football. But if I had to pick a winner, it's BYU. They've been tested, they've come through, they've won big time football games, they play well on both sides. So I would lean towards them a little bit right now. But I feel pretty good that Colorado is going to be able to make it to the Big 12 championship game. Their schedule is very favorable going forward. We thought it was going to be daunting, but Utah's not very good this year. Kansas not very good this year, and Oklahoma State is just it's
a mess. Most disappointing team in college football.
Yeah, their biggest games this weekend against Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is the worst passing defense in the Big 12 by 40 yards per game worse. They are horrendous stopping the pass. So I think Colorado wins it. I think that's their toughest task. If they win that game, I feel pretty good that they'll be freaking 10-2, 7-1 in the conference.
Wild. Yeah, and the BYU at Utah is always interesting, the game formerly known as the Holy War. Utah can't score this year, but still road game, rivalry game, that's tricky too.
Yeah, so I'm just hoping for Colorado, man. Hoping for Colorado. That'd be fun.
All I'm hoping for is the Ole Miss Rebels to upset your dogs this weekend to get in this playoff thing. Can't wait. And check out Aaron on the call, South Carolina Vandy. Snaps with you and T-Bob. I know you're real busy with a lot of stuff. How can we? What's your? I watch snaps and I watch you call games. So I feel
just follow us on Snap. Yeah, it's Snap CFP on YouTube, and then follow me on socials, Aaron Murray 11, kind of wherever you go, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
All right. Well, you'll be hearing from me a lot on Saturday. I'm sure of that. And man, Georgia Ole Miss, Barstool taking over Oxford, Library Friday night, college football show. I mean, we might be, it might be boxes of rain, but we're still going to have a damn good time. And thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you giving us time this morning, man. Very nice of you.
See you, brother. Have fun this weekend.
Oh, I won't do anything you wouldn't do. Aaron Murray joining us this morning on Wake Up Mintzy. Appreciate it. Follow him at Aaron Murray 11. Before we get out of here, we got a few more minutes. Tomorrow, Bo Wallace, former Ole Miss quarterback, who's been letting the fur fly on Twitter, especially at Hugh Freeze. I feel like it's a great time to get him on Wake Up Mintzy to see what he has to say out of Georgia. And then also I'm going to definitely poke the bear a little bit on his comments about Hugh Freeze and everything going on at Auburn. That's a very interesting situation, so I'm looking forward to be joined by Bo. I think actually we're going to be taping we got to tape DraftKings Fantasy Pod here in a minute. Love DraftKings. Get on there for play daily fantasy against us in the Pardon My Take AWL League, $5. You can compete against Big Cat and all the Pardon My Take guys, me, Moody, and Stephen Shea. Dude wipes Stella Blue. What's not to love? I've got some clips. We'll save the clips for tomorrow because we're running low on time for the Savannah Quarterback Club for my speech. Thanks to Aaron Murray for joining us. Like I said, Bo Wallace tomorrow. We'll have us a damn good time, and let's hey, what a week to be alive, man. Big college football weekend ahead. Let's go. Thank y'all for watching Wake Up Mintzy, presented by Dude Wipes. Man, I love fall. The leaves are changing, football, and Stella Blue coffee. And this season, maple pumpkin pie. But my morning routine would not be complete without pumpkin spice Dude Wipes.
Oh, Mintzy, let it rip.
Cheers, furry fellas. Coffee that fuels you, wipes that clean you.